Well, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to our first professional development for 2022-23 formally. I'm happy to have you back. Hope you have had a restful summer, whether working or vacationing or coming back into a new program year after having some time off. We're very excited to have our partners from Aztec here with us to talk about all things performance related on a Monday afternoon, and so gracious for them. They've got a lot going on today. They have their national call coming up here shortly. And so we're just very grateful and thankful that they were able to squeeze us in today. Again, welcome. If you've got questions, comments, chats throughout the session today, you can put them into the chat box and our presenters will address that. I do want to share with you, and many of you are familiar with this, but we will pull it up anyway. Use my million tabs open. I apologize. I thought I had it open. So this year, we did this towards the end of last program year, but we have a sketch request form. So if you're looking for continuing education hours, I'll put this link into the chat. You'll fill out this form. And then at the drop-down section, you'll need to indicate that this is the professional development training that you're attending today, the Proving NRS Gains. So make sure you do that. We are recording today's session, and that will be available through the end of May 2023. I know it's a long time away, but you'll be able to record or watch the recording as well as fill out and apply for the sketch if you need those going throughout that time. The other thing I would share is that we hope this is an interactive session. So if you've got questions or comments, please put them into the chat. Our presenters will be happy to answer those questions that you might have. We'd ask that you stay muted just to be courteous to everyone else, participants and presenters. And you can raise your hand if you've got a particular question. And really what we'd like you to take away are kind of a couple of overarching themes. As they talk about the wonderful team from Aztec, as they talk about the plethora and the plenary of resources that they have available, it would be important as we start this new program year for you to think about what resources do you currently have within your repository and within your repertoire, and what are you looking to expand to? What are some of the gap areas that maybe you've had conversations about over the last couple of years as we come through this odd time called COVID? Where do you want to go with this program, and what are the resources that might get you to that level? Also considering, we were just having a behind the scenes conversation thinking about what are some of the requirements that are being required of our program, both on a statewide level and a federal level. And so really considering and thinking about, do you have a clear understanding of what those requirements are? They're an important part of our programming and in order to meet the needs of the people that we're serving. And do you understand what those are for your role and your contribution to the team, whether that's an instructor, a support staff, an administrator, and then really thinking about, does your entire team have a clear understanding of that? Is that being articulated? Are you having conversations about the resources that you're using, where you are at meeting your performance beyond just the end of the year conversation, right? And the sudden scramble to get everyone post-tested and meet some of those requirements. It's an ongoing conversation. And so we would really encourage you today to really think about what are some takeaways, and our presenters will share some wonderful advice on that, but what are some takeaways for you within your position or within your team to be able to do that and to grow your program and have it be the best program it can be. So I will turn it over to our wonderful partners at Aztec Software. I just want to thank them so much. They have been great supporters of us as a state association. We've worked with them for a number of years. They've continued to sponsor our fall conference and are a great supporter there. They've always partnered with us and connect on professional development. We've had Mitch Rosen come into our state and do multiple professional developments there. And he's joined today also by his colleagues, Karen Ruiz and Christina Miller. And then Deanna also was at our state spring conference this year, and you maybe met her there in person. So she's a good person to know as well. But I will turn it over. And again, I'll put the sketch link back in if you're just joining, and you can complete that. And I'll turn it over to our colleagues from Aztec.
Super. Okay. Hi, everybody. My name is Karen Ruiz, and I am our Aztec Senior National Academic Specialist. I'm joined by my partner in crime, Chris Miller, who's our National Consultant. And thank you so much for joining today's session. We're going to cover the ways that our Aztec products will assist your classes and students in making score gains on their CASAS exams. As an in-class teacher who does CASAS testing and I have classes that start next Tuesday night. I know how important these exam scores are. So we're going to be reviewing the products and the key features that will help our educators monitor and evaluate student needs and growth in order to pinpoint and assign the most pertinent instructional activities for each of your students. So Aztec offers a variety of different academic programs and products. Chris, I'm gonna have you skip to the next slide for me. She's gonna be our driver today. There we go. So please keep in mind that what you see in this presentation might not look exactly the same as what your agency uses. So if you see a feature or functionality that you don't have, but you'd like to learn more about, please contact your field service representative, also known as your FSR. You can also contact your sales representative. And for those of you who are interested in our Spanish products, please know that Aztec's dedicated FSR team is always available to assist you. Let's go to the next slide. We have just one more piece of housekeeping because I'd like to mention that the Aztec family of companies offers the largest and most comprehensive collection of adult education and workforce development currently available on the market. This includes our 4 current curriculum collections: Aztec Life Skills Education for workforce and personal development, Aztec Paxen Steck-Vaughn print-based materials, our Aztec software for computer-based learning, and Aztec Pass Assured, which is coming very soon for our online pharmacy tech program. And again, if you have any questions about these products, you can go to our website at aztecsoftware.com, or you can reach out to one of our sales team members. So thank you so much again for joining us. And you may have heard of Aztec as we have been in this ecosystem for about 40 years. Before anything else, I wanted you to really understand who we are organizationally. This is a critical item because who you select as a provider will have a tremendous impact on the success for your organization and also for your students. And for those that have had some previous experience with us at Aztec, I know you'll find and hear hopefully something new today as we're constantly evolving. 40 years ago, Aztec was started by 2 adult educators who knew the importance of creating a student-centric and outcome-driven educational experience, but they uniquely built it specifically for adult learners. And in a visionary fashion, they also knew that using technology, that they could reach more students, reimagine the learning experience, and provide the skills learners would need to succeed in and beyond our classrooms. So we're going to go over a bunch of that today. Let's go ahead and go to the next slide. For today's webinar, what we'll do is we're going to provide some resources, both online and print, across all areas and all levels of instruction, from non-readers all the way through post-secondary, that are available from Aztec Software, Paxen Steck-Vaughn Publishing, and our Life Skills Education. And as a special thanks for joining, we have some samples for you. We also have some discount codes for you, and we'll talk about that at the end. Let's go to the next one. Chris, take it away.
I'll take it away from here. So again, I want to echo what Karen said, and thank you for attending today, being with us. A little bit of background. I've been in adult ed for over 30 years. Started out as an program, worked as a local program director for over 20 years. Went back and got my master's in counseling because you know how important counseling is with our adult learners. Then I went to the state level and worked there for a little while. And then once I retired, I have been so fortunate to be with Aztec and to provide training like this, and to other programs once they get on the state level, to do some state conferences. It's been a great time. The first thing I wanted to talk to you about, though, and I hope this looks familiar to everyone, is if I can get this to turn there. How many of you recognize that? Table 4, right? And this is where all of our information is, all of the information that we really need to stay on top of. I'm going to challenge you to look at your own classroom. You know, this is the national table 4 that has an aggregate, and you can see right up here, it's an aggregate table for 2020 to 2021. And that happens because the feds, once they get all the state information in, it takes them quite a while to get it posted. So even though we're really in 21, 22, this is the latest data that we can find for our national level programs. So this is what everyone should be concerned with, is where do our learners enter into our program? Because that really dictates, that really tells us what kind of curriculum we need to have and the different things that we need to have available. If you'll look at ABE levels, and you should be familiar with this, these are levels 1 through 6, it's the NRS level. And I've pulled it up a little bit so that you could see where most people enter. And the challenge that I do want to, in terms of getting you to look at this table on your own, is to see where your students are. We see that on a national level, they enter in predominantly levels 2, 3, and 4. When I was on the state level, and even as local director, we would go down when the legislature was in, and we would talk to the legislature about, you know, how our programs were running. Well, what they wanted to know was, well, how many GEDs did you get? You know, and it was always this explanation of, it's not just how many get their GED or their high school equivalency, but how do we get our students from where they enter up to that point? Because I think it's a real eye-opener for so many people to see that our students do enter at a pretty low level. If we look at level 2, we know that that is 2nd grade through 3.9. We've got level 3, which, as you can see on the national level, there's 115,000. And that is level 4 through 5.9. And then level 4 is 6 through 8.9. So that's where the bulk of our people really enter. And if you look at levels 2 and levels 3, that's 51% of the people that enroll are in those lower levels. So as you're looking through at your curriculum, please look at your last year's data to see exactly where everybody fell out. And as we know, adult ed is the proverbial one-room schoolhouse. Any of our classes, as you walk in, you can see students on that lower level, all the way through those that are working on a high school equivalency, and they're working on all different subjects. So it really does take a lot of different curricula that you need to have as a resource. And, you know, it's from that preparation from the lowest level all the way up to the highest that we need in that same classroom. So we're going to look at the continuum of learning. And Karen, I think you'll take it from here.
Yeah, I'm going to take it from here. So if we look at that continuum of learning, we're going to kind of get familiarized with all of our different things. And like Chris had said before, hopefully that table looks a little bit familiar to you. It is our NRS table 4. It's critically important, not only for the outcomes such as our MSG percentages, but also to see where our learners initially place in our classrooms. So go ahead and click that first one, and we should have an animation pop up. There we go. So for our ABE-ASC students, their initial level as determined by the CASAS test will be from ABE level 1 through 6, which aligns to the NRS levels and grade equivalents. Go ahead and click again. And those are shown in that grid here. And we talked about that grid in that previous slide for Chris. So you may be surprised to see the largest numbers are in levels 2, 3, and 4. Go ahead and click again. And the largest group of learners enrolled in WIOA-funded programs across the US during the 2020-2021 school year did so at level 3, which is equivalent to about the beginning of the 4th grade through to the end of the 5th grade. And combined with the other two largest groups of level 2 and level 3, and then level 4, that grade equivalency is from the beginning of 2nd grade through to about the end of the 8th grade. And it makes up nearly 75% of the total number of enrolled students. And so again, these are statistics for all of the students enrolled in WIOA-funded programs across the United States and its territories. But it's really important for us as educators to kind of take that into consideration and then also look at our own site and our class's data. What ABE and NRS levels are your students most likely to enroll at? And what are the trends for their corresponding grade equivalency? And as we look through our Aztec curricula for all of our students' needs, being able to discern where the most learners start and their distribution across the levels, this really helps you begin to build materials and programs that meet the academic needs of your students and your classes. So let's go to that next slide. And we're going to look way out at like the 30,000 foot view, because as you can see in this table, all of Aztec's materials are aligned to the CASAS assessments by levels, by the NRS educational functioning levels or EFLs, and also by the college and career readiness standards or the CCRS. And one of the most often asked questions that we get is, how do we know what materials to use? So this chart will really help anyone determine which print or online curricula is a best fit based on the student's CASAS level or their placement test level after they do that initial placement or entry exam. Let's go ahead and look at the next slide. This is a similar chart here on the next slide that includes alignment, not just to the Aztec software programs. Go ahead and click. Those are on the left, but also on the right to the NRS levels, both for CASAS and for TABE if your site is also using TABE. So if you click again, you can see those CASAS levels, those CASAS tests and scores. So I do know a lot of schools that actually, instead of using an assortment of different tests for placement, they will just go based solely on that CASAS score and that CASAS test to determine which level of Aztec material for the students to use. And of course, this is our online material. But if we go to the next slide, we're going to look at some of that online material. We're going to look at it side by side with our print materials that are all on the same level. And because so many programs are now offering blended programs, or they're using some form of print and online in a traditional class to meet the needs of their learners, we have really seen an increase in the need for pairing these methods of delivery for each level. And with the price of gas getting so high, lots of our learners are looking to have some options for instruction. So we do have options, both print and online, at all of those levels. For NRS level 1, 2, and 3 shown here, these are the print and online options. You can also see the breakdown of TABE and CASAS levels on the screen. For print, the Fundamental Skills 2nd Edition series provides students with instructions on grade levels ranging from 0 all the way through 5.9. A wide range for our non-readers up through about almost 6th grade. And then Aztec's fundamental online curriculum serves learners who are needing instruction from 0.5 grade level up through 2.9. And then the students would transition to the foundation software, and that picks up that instruction at that 3.0 grade point equivalency up through 5.9. So I'm going to talk a little bit just about the online curriculum. I'm going to have Chris slip to the next slide. So Aztec's Fundamental and Foundations online curricula serves learners who are needing instruction from 0.5 grade equivalency through to 5.9, as I mentioned before, with the fundamentals, and for students at grade level equivalency of kindergarten through the end of 2nd grade for the foundations. Oh, sorry, back that up. So fundamentals is 0 through to 2.9, and then foundations is 3 to 5.9. And so you can use those CASAS scores, 203 or below, would be placed in our fundamentals level, and then the students who are 204 or 227, and that of course is in reading, would be at that foundations level. And I've had a lot of students who are testing into my GED class solely on their CASAS reading score. And so they could be testing at like, I've had them test at like 250 or 260, or I had a couple that got perfect testing scores as an entrance level for reading on their CASAS level D test. But when we went to go look at math, we were down in the fundamentals and foundations level. And so it's important to keep in mind all of these different levels and what's available to you, because your students might not need the same level across all 4 subject areas or across any of their subject areas, depending on which tests they're working on. So let's move to the next slide. And so this is the fundamentals class, and the fundamentals class has a number of different learning activities that are organized in modules that focus on the fundamentals of reading, including but not limited to letters and sounds, word families, and vowel and consonant blends. Aztec fundamentals modules also include units of study. So you can see each unit of study that opens up there. And so we have that one unit of study open up down below, the one that says, there we go, the basics of spelling or reading. Sorry, my reading glasses are a little foggy. So if you look at that fundamentals of reading, you can see that we have all of our pre-test. It starts with a pre-test, then we have lessons and drills. And then at the end, after those lessons and drills that correspond to one another, we have the post-test as well. And so each of these activities are really important for the students to work through so that they have, you know, a clear understanding of all of the different aspects of these lessons, and you have checks for understanding, which are those drills, and then you have a post assessment to ensure that all of those concepts are understood before we move on to the next section. And so we have also, in addition to that, we have an introduction to language, reading, writing, and mathematics. And if Chris, if you'll click through, you can see the different subject areas that are included in this fundamentals level class. And so you can see all of those different levels that we have there. We have strategies that are available for our students to learn those higher end or basic level math classes or math skills, basic level reading skills, basic level writing skills, all of those things that are necessary for them to be successful at those higher levels. And you can see in particular with the math, I mean, we really do cover everything, but this is at that fundamental level. So they're going to be doing geometry and data analyzing at that fundamental level, but it's really that introduction and those core concepts that need to be understood. So if we click over to the foundations class, it's, you know, it's organized in a similar fashion, except that there's only 3 modules of lessons and units instead of 4. So we have foundations for reading, foundations using math, and foundations using language. So for the reading activities, they cover skills that improve reading more difficult words, strategies to improve comprehension, and activities that introduce students to a variety of different texts and media formats. The language activities on that next, there we go. They focus on improving a student's grammar, syntax, and paragraph structures. And I have had students who've scored in the 200 range on their CASAS tests move up rapidly into the 215 to 20 range after utilizing the fundamentals and foundations. So as a user and as somebody who's had students who've used this, I can't tell you enough and stress enough how successful this program really is. The math module is also really successful at this foundation level. I have a lot of my high-end readers who struggle in math, and this math module covers everything foundational, including computations, whole numbers, fractions, and decimals. And, you know, they are really successful in understanding those core foundational concepts to then move on to things like measurement, geometry, data analysis, and prepping for algebra. And I saw a question that just popped up in the chat pod. What percentage bypasses a student from a particular unit or lessons? So I believe it's 70% for you to get that waived piece. And for folks that don't know, if the students go off and take a pre-test or at the higher level, at the GED or HSE high set level, there's practice tests. If they go and take those pre-tests and practice tests in that unit of study, and their little bubbles in front of their lessons are blue with a check mark, those are wave lessons, and that's typically 70%.
Karen, we have a question in the chat.
I think I just answered it. Was that the percentage one?
Yes.
Yeah.
I'm gonna make sure.
Yeah. I've got 3 screens. I got, if my eyes are all over the place, that's what's going on.
But please ask questions while we're going through this. Please ask
Yeah,
questions.
absolutely. So hopefully if that didn't answer your question, please let me know. And then I'm going to flip over and let Chris talk about our print materials.
Okay, not to be too confusing, but the print is called Fundamental Skills also. So we have 3 books, and I just want to bring to your attention that these are levels. Let me take this off so I can see, or you can see me, but the Foundations has reading, language, and writing, and math. And for NRS level 1, it targets those specific skills that are in NRS level 1, 0 to 1.9. We also have the next level up, which is NRS level 2, which will bring your students into that 2 to 3.9 grade equivalency. And then the print material for level 3, which is 4 to 5.9. And it will address all the skills. We're going to look at those skills in just a second. But to also let you know that there is an instructor's edition, and that instructor's edition has just a lot of good information in there for you. It has lesson plans, it has activities to do with your learners. So those fundamental skills, the 3 that address each one of the levels in the teacher edition, is a great resource to have. Now, know that so many times, you know, we have had fundamental, that lower level instructional curriculum, but it has been like a K-12 program that has been reworked. Well, know that the Fundamental Skill Series was developed specifically for adult learners. It has not been reworked and just brought into the adult realm. The other thing is it has controlled readability, vocabulary, which gives each learner that comfort level that they need in order to grow and mature in their strengths for vocabulary. It has positive reinforcement that is built into each lesson so that as they go through, they can develop and progress to the higher levels. There are learning objectives that are fully aligned to TABE and CASAS. And the content, one of the ways that we have developed this into a way to provide it to students, especially at this level, that's really important, is to chunk it. And that means to put it into manageable lessons, small enough that they can really understand, digest, and truly learn those skills for that lesson. Now, if we look at each one step by step, and this is going to be, and know that it is in English and in Spanish if you have the need for the Spanish version. First one we're going to look at is reading. Another one of the strategies that is used in the development of this series, as with many of the Aztec print materials, is going to be what we call spiral curriculum. And that means that we will have a skill that's introduced at a low level, and then it will be compounded and built upon in the next level so that the student has a thorough understanding of that skill, and it won't be like a brand new skill recognized from one level to the next. So here you can see, and this is 0 to 1.9, this is the literacy level. You can see that, of course, it starts with phonics. It would have to with that 0 to 1.9 grade equivalency. But then, as you see, we got built through the literacy level, but now look at this beginning level right in the middle of the page. Phonics and vocabulary are now built together, but they are built into a more mature understanding of what the phonics and the vocabulary and how they work together to build vocabulary mastery. You have the reading comprehension and the reference skills built into that beginning level from the literacy level. And then again, in the next level up, the 4 to 5.9 grade equivalency for NRS level 3, you have the vocabulary reference and reading comprehension built to a totally different level. But you see how it's compounded. Each level is built upon the one before, so that the students get a true understanding of that information. Same for the language and the writing. You can see the literacy, the beginning and the intermediate, and the different skills that are attached to each level. Literacy skills, grammar mechanics, vocabulary and comprehension are all compounded and built on from the literacy level into beginning and into intermediate. So here you have a very comprehensive guide for the students, building them from NRS level 1, doing a post-test, hopefully getting them into that level 2 so that you can have a measurable skill gain for these students, and then again into level 3 to the 4 to the 5.9. Of course, math is a little bit more intense because, as Karen was saying, there's a lot of information in not only the online version, but in the print for math. So here we have the literacy level, which just starts out with number sense. What is a number? You're counting numbers. And then you think about our students, our learners, as they're in class, and we know they're in that lower level, but it says on the book, algebra, measurement, data analysis. So you think about what confidence that's going to build in the students also, so that they can have that kind of skills even at that level. And you can see as they're compounded into beginning level and then on into intermediate, again, that spiral curriculum really builds on the basic skills up into the skills that they're going to need to move on into a pre-GED level. So that is pretty much it for the print material for this foundation or fundamental level. Gives them the foundational skills that they really need. Karen?
Okay, so we're going to move on to our pre-GED HSE levels, grade levels 6 through 8, or NRS level 4. We did have a question that came up in the chat pod, and so I'll just reiterate it for everybody else if you're not following along in the chat pod. What I love as a teacher for Aztec is that they have assessments built in all throughout the entire program through our print materials and through our online materials. But in particular with our online materials, we have pre-tests, we have drills, we have post-tests, there are practice tests at the GED and high set level. We also have our flash sets through GED Flash. And the question was, are there any time limits? And there are not. There are not any time limits for any of our assessments online. I know some folks are like, oh, well, you know, the big tests that they have to take, their GED or the high sets, those are timed. CASAS tests are timed. And, you know, I feel kind of similar to what my students say. It's like we like having at least one assessment where we aren't under the clock and we aren't being timed. There is a clock there so they can work on things and see if they can reduce their time, but they aren't going to get kicked out if they haven't finished anything. So looking here at our ABE ASC level 6 through 8, or 6 through 8.9, NRS level 7, or I'm sorry, 4, or our pre-HSE level, these series provide students with instruction on grade levels in that, you know, getting ready for GED or HSE or high school diploma, depending on your program. And so what I really like about the print series is that, again, there is an instructor's edition that also provides lesson plans and activities for those. And we also, of course, have our online program, and that is our Bridge program, sometimes called Bridge or Pre-HSE. And so the Bridge class, or pre-HSE class really helps your students prep for those high school level skills. It has 4 modules of learning activities, and they include a bonus unit with a lesson on making the transition to career and college readiness. And then we have our reading activities, and they have 3 different units of lessons. So if we click on that, you could see those 3 different units. Chris, let me have you click one more time for me. There we go. And then if we click again and we look at our writing, those focus on, students' grammar, syntax, and paragraph structures. They aren't quite into the write the 5-page or 5-paragraph essay quite yet. They're kind of revamping their paragraphs, which is a great way to get students ready for those high school level essays that are required for their GED or high set. And then the last level the last module is our math module, and that covers the math skills necessary to prepare our students for adult secondary math activities. So it's lengthy, so it includes things like solving linear equations, inequalities, or on the next slide, deeper dive into geometry and functions, graphs, and statistics. So lots of in-depth preparation for that HSE level material. And then Chris, go ahead and take it away with our print materials.
Okay. And in the print material, you ask about pretest. This is, again, in English and in Spanish. It is the 6 to 8.9 through 8.9 pre-GED series. But I want to say that even though it says pre-GED, it is really for any of those basic skills. It gives your students a tremendous foundation. And it's in the 4 subjects: language arts, which includes the reading and the writing, social studies, science, and mathematics. The table of contents, which I've put on this slide, gives you an idea of what each book contains. You'll first start off with a pre-test, and that may be that once your students have taken your initial test and they fall into this 6 through 8.9, they may not need all of the different skills that are within each subject. So that pre-test has an evaluation chart, and from that evaluation chart, you can really target the instruction. So pre-test to the evaluation chart gives you a wonderful prescription. If you are tasked with writing an individual educational plan or a plan of instruction, whatever Michigan calls that, each state is required to do those plans for each student. So this is a great way to have it built in there for you. Also, once they do a series of lessons within a unit, you're going to see that there's a unit review. Now, what we've included within the units is something called at-work lessons. Now, that's in the science and the social studies only, but you know how the federal initiatives have included that contextualized instruction that we're supposed to be doing also to include within our curriculum. That contextualized is found here in the at-work section for the social studies and the science. So it really satisfies that requirement for you too. So at the end of each unit, like I said, there will be a unit review, and those unit reviews you're going to see it's just like a little mini test, and that's going to make sure that your students have mastered the material within those units before you let them go on. At the very end of the book, you're going to have a post-test, and there's also an evaluation chart so that you can see exactly what skills they need to go back and remediate in before they move on. So always with students who miss anything, go back and just make sure it was not a careless mistake. I used to tell my students, it doesn't matter if it's a careless mistake or not, you still missed it. We need to make sure that you understand it, because we don't want to compound the problem by moving on when you really need to go back and address that skill. Within the books, you can see that there's a calculator handbook, and then not only just the answers, but there's also explanations within that too. and then there's a glossary for each book. So it really is a comprehensive series that addresses the skills 6 through 8.9. Going to go into the GED, and Karen, I'll let you take over from here for this one.
Okie doke. So we're going to review really quick just the GED level print material as well as our online material. I'm going to lead us through the online material, and then I'm actually going to slip out the back door and head over to our weekly national webinar. We have webinars every Monday. It's at 12 p.m. Pacific time, which is where I am. And if you haven't signed up for our webinars or haven't been able to attend, we would love to have you join us. You just need to go to our website, aztecsoftware.com. And I think if you hang around the site for more than 15 seconds, it'll actually flash a pop-up and say, hey, would you like some professional development? If you click on that, you can sign up with an email address, or you can have access to register for our webinars. So if you'd like to join us there. But let me go over our high school high school equivalency level. Aztec Paxen Publishing, in cooperation with GED Testing Service, offers GED prep books. These are our second edition books. So you can see up at the top in our picture, those are our Steck-Vaughn test prep books. They are aligned to the GED content. We also have larger big books, which we call them our big books. Lovingly, but those are our complete guides to prep students for the GED or for the high set. We also have paper practice tests. And in addition to that, we also have our online coursework. Oh, and I have to mention too, that our Steck-Vaughn test prep books, those 4 books up at the top in the orange and green, purple and blue covers, those are our second edition. And they do include 2 new features. One of them are at work lessons, which are contextualized lessons with practice exercises. And the topics are all from the Department of Labor's 16 career clusters. And they also have lessons on those high impact indicators. So I had somebody reach out to me and say, we already have the old books. Should we get the new books? And I said, if you have the money, get the new books, because they really target those high impact indicators. And then they also have those contextualized lessons as well. So let's go to that next slide, please. There we go. And so in here, you can see all of our GED and high set classes. So we have a range of different classes and programs that prepare our students at that high school level. They do include some bonus materials. There's one about making the transition to college and career readiness. There's also computer literacy. And included in this screenshot are the logos for the GED Flash course, which I mentioned previously in our test time question, and also our GED Play class. These are all courses for students with CASAS schools reading scores of 239 or higher and math scores of 226 or higher. For TABE, the scores are 576 or higher in reading, 596 or higher for language, and 584 or higher for math. So I wanted to just touch really quickly on GED Play, and go ahead and click again first, Chris. So actually, we'll get to GED Play. Yeah, GED Play is Aztec's library of videos for each of GED subject areas. And similar to the other Aztec classes, each subject area module is broken into units, and then they have videos for each of those units. So this is just our GED class that's up here on the piece. So it's a little bit different. I usually have my students work on GED Play after they have completed most of the GED materials in a single subject area, or if they have a really high score in their practice test, maybe an official GED practice test. If their score is at passing or pretty close, I'll have them go do GED Play and just watch some videos about all of the content area for GED, just as a review. I might also use that GED Play library to introduce that content to our students, kind of like a pre-lesson or a flipped lesson informational bit before they actually go in for instruction, especially if they're coming to me for direct instruction. So they kind of have some background knowledge before we actually hit the ground running with the lessons. There are no lessons or there are no assessments in GED Play, but they are really great videos for students to use. Go ahead and click again for me. There we go. And so you can see in here, here's our GED play videos. Each set of videos for each subject area is broken down by units, and then they have a variety of different lessons for each, or different videos for each subject area. And then go ahead and click again. So the HiSET class and the GED class are both pretty much made the same way. We don't have a HiSET flash. We really just have that GED flash. But if you were to have access to that and you were a HiSET site, you might be able to utilize that. You would just have to kind of do some work to align those lessons to that material. If you go ahead and click again for me, Chris. You'll see here our GED. Oh, this is GED Flash again. Let's move forward one more time. There we go. So here's our GED materials, and you can see the different modules that we have for lessons. Go ahead and click again for me, Chris. And then you can see HiSET is pretty similar. Of course, HiSET has that extra test in language arts. They have writing as well as reading. And so you can see that that has that extra subject area or module of classes and lessons, but you'll also notice that they have one that's called Advanced Concepts. And that is a math course. So additional lessons in math, and they cover things like trigonometry, composite figures, vectors and matrices, and transformation, similarity, and congruence. And so the GED and HiSET, they're really similar, except for those additional lessons that you have that cover those different materials. And then the last thing that should be noted, and go ahead and click on that last piece. So it should be noted that our GED and HiSET are offered in two different ways. And you can see that kind of to the left of this screenshot, that we have GED Kaplan and HiSET Kaplan. And then we also have GED and HiSET. So GED and HiSET without the Kaplan piece, those are our core classes. The Kaplan versions have these Kaplan videos that are embedded within the Aztec content. Some of the modules may have as many as like 6 to 8 of these additional videos embedded within each of the subject area classes or lessons. And they just go over that material a little bit more in depth for the student. And it is a live video. So that woman, we don't have an actual video of her here on this slideshow, but she'll run through the lesson with the students. It's usually about 5 to 10 minutes. And so with that, that is all of our online material, subject area specific material. So I'm going to let Chris take the reins and take us through the end.
And you go on to the video, to the webinar, and we'll catch up with you later. Thank you so much, Karen.
Thanks, everybody. Have a good session and have fun with Chris.
We will. Thank you. Karen had talked a little bit about this, the Steck-Vaughn second edition GED series. And it is a fabulous series. It is an upgrade from the first edition. And she mentioned a few of the features, but I want to say now that this is the student book, and you've got the student book. We'll go through it very quickly in just a minute, but it is different from the workbook. So you're actually going to have 2 books for each of the subjects. Now, if we look at the student book, you know those students that come into your classroom and they say, oh, I know this. And you're thinking, right, I'm sure you do, but let's just review it. This is the review book. And so it is really what we call a micro lesson. The student books consist of a 2-page, just short lesson, the micro lesson, that gives the students enough information to see if they really do remember it. If they do, that's great. They can move on. It goes with the application of learn, practice, and apply. It does have lessons, and after those lessons go through the units, you're going to have reviews in place for the units. There are different learning strategies that are scattered throughout. The spiral curriculum, of course, is included in that. Now, a little different, where this is a 2-page micro lesson. Now that we've included those high impact lessons, the high impact lessons actually are going to have 4 pages in the student book, because this is really the introduction. Now, for those of you that are thinking, what is that high impact? What do you mean high impact indicator? GED testing service. Those of you that have been around as long as I have, you know that when we would go to a conference, especially a national conference, we would go to the GED sessions and they would tell us what our students were missing the most, right? And so those were always great informational sessions that we would find out who was missing the most on what subject and in which area. Well, they don't do that anymore, but they do put out a document, and it's called High Impact Indicators. If you just Google that, it's under the GED website. You can go there and download it too. But we've included that high impact indicator as lessons within this new curriculum, within this second edition. So you're going to be able to have each of those skills that need to be targeted, that students are showing across the country that they're missing the most, already included in this series. We've also have more contextual lessons that are called the at-work lessons. And then, of course, there are the spotlighted items, and those in print will still help your students learn how to do hotspots, drop down boxes, fill in the blank, all of the different ways that they have to answer questions on the GED. They're still going to get that kind of information in a print book. The next is the workbook. Now, the workbook has twice as much information, twice as much lesson, and it has twice as much practice. So the real advantage is to use both of them together, but the workbook, for those students that really do need to have more than just the 2-page micro lessons. In this one, the strategy is review, refine, and then master. These are different lessons that are presented from the student book. So they're not going to recycle the lessons. They're going to be totally different. There's going to be guided practice, because if your students are working by themselves and they need to have just a little bit in a call out box that tells them how to work through that problem, then they've got that as a guided practice before they are alone doing the practice exercises. Spotlight items are included again in the workbook. High impact lessons are now in the workbook only 2 pages. We've introduced them in the student book where you have 4 pages. In the workbook, they're refined to 2 pages. And we also have the at-work lessons and they're different lessons within the workbook too. Now, all of you have had students that have come back, taken their GED and only missed a little bit on it, and they get a printout. Wanted you to know that some of our materials are on that GED Ready Skills checklist. So you can have the students bring you a copy of that. You can't access it without their permission. So have them bring in that print off for you, and you'll have some practice exercises and a built-in plan of instruction to remediate from that GED test itself. Now, we're going to look at 2 different series that really encompass all levels. And right in the middle of the page, I want you to notice that shouldn't have flipped. The NRS level, this is a tutor for TABE. So those of you that are using TABE know that we have a curriculum, and it's in print and it's in online version. As you can see, you could put it on a computer, you could put it on a tablet, they could access it from their telephone, but it is for EM, D, and A. The literacy level I included there just so that I could mention to you that literacy level is covered by that a different series. So we even have a crosswalk for it. If you need that literacy level, we've already talked about the different print and online materials for that, but that's included elsewhere. E, M, D, and A are for a tutor for TABE, and you can see it directly addresses the skills and competencies within each level. So if you have someone that's in the M level, then they're going to be NRS level, low intermediate. And to get them up to that next level, if they master the skills within that level, they will really be assured that they're going to do well on the post-test or the next test, as some states call it. Within this book also, you do have there's a pre-test in the book and an analysis chart so that you can target that instruction again if you wanted to do that. After they've done a few lessons, then there's at the end of that unit, they will have a unit review. And at the very end of the book, they're going to have an entire assessment that really mirrors what they have on the TABE pre-test. If they took TABE M level, then the pre-test or the post-test in the book is going to be comparable to what they're going to see as a post-test. So this is a wonderful series, and like I said, it really targets each level. We also have the same thing for CASAS, and you can see up the upper left-hand corner the NRS levels as they correlate to the CASAS levels. And it's flicking by itself, and also it's in print, as you can see down at the bottom, or it can be accessed through the digital forms. This is a sample lesson. It is exactly what you would see in the book. And I wanted to show you that the lesson and the name of the lesson is included in each one. You're also going to have an example. You're going to have explanation of that lesson. And for the CASAS and for the TABE, each lesson is going to have the standard that that lesson is teaching. So you've got the standard. In this case, it's the CASAS, the M1.2.3, and with the TABE, you're going to have the college and career readiness standards cited with each lesson. So there's never going to be a guess about what you're teaching. The examples are there, and also explanations of exactly how to get the correct answer. Here again, you've got the example. You've got the guided practice that's included, so that if a student's working individually or by themselves, they've got that to help them out. And the answer is right beneath that guided practice, because this should be a learning experience. We don't want the students to struggle with this. We want them to, even if they have to take the answer and fold it back into the question, to be able to learn how to do that type of question, because these are the types of questions that they're going to see on either the CASAS post-test or the TABE post-test. When possible, we've included a strategy or a hint to help them solve the problem. And with each one of these, we have the delivery methods. I've just mentioned it. It's either going to be, you can take it on the interactive digital Aztec platform. If you would like an EPUB, and EPUBs have become very popular since we've been out for our COVID times, so that you could download it to an individual tablet or an individual phone as an individual EPUB. If your program has Canvas or Blackboard, then it's available to be downloaded there. If you're using Aztec already, then you've got the Aztec platform that it could be downloaded on, and of course the student and the workbooks for the print materials. This is a tutor for CASAS, or this is an example of a tutor for TABE actually. And you can see that under the activities, you can see that this is reading level D, and then there's the pre-test, the lessons, and the drills, and the post-test for each one. This happens to be one of the EPUBs, and you can see under the classroom activities, you can see that it does have under files and plans the ability for the students to look on a bookshelf, and you can download whichever book or books that you want that student to access. In this case, it's a tutor for CASAS, math level C, and that's the book, and it's from the bookshelf. Just go through and let you see that. And you have complete control over that. The contents, you can see on the very left-hand side, it is the table of contents. The student can click on any one of the lessons and go straight to that. They can also bookmark it for ease of coming back to where they left off. And then there's the ability to take notes and to be able to access those at any time. Notes are terribly important when they are getting to the upper levels where they really need to have more information. And with that, I know that we're a minute over. Mitch, I'm going to let you take over and explain this slide.
Sure. Thank you, everybody, for joining today. It's great to see all of you. As we usually do, we want to make sure that you get an opportunity to purchase some Aztec materials, but at a discount. So Patrick, your membership will be open to purchase Aztec at a 5% discount off print and a 10% off digital for the next 60 days. And the code that they should use is MACAE 2022. And I'll toss it back over to you. You there, Patrick?
I am here. Thank you so much.
Great.
We always appreciate you, Mitch, and the rest of the team and giving us all these things that we can utilize and the gifts that you give us. And thank you to Christina and Karen, and appreciate everyone for attending. We'll make sure that everyone gets the resources and information from today's recording and session, and really just appreciate Aztec and the team for sharing all this information. So take care. We'll sign off for today, everyone. Take care. Be well.
Thanks, Patrick.